Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to our relationship month here on the Unashamed podcast. This is episode number 18 overall, which is crazy. Yeah, we're almost at 20. Today, we will be talking about family relationships. I know this is kind of a touchy topic for some people, but we're going to try to tackle it the best as we can. And yeah, we'll get right into it. I think we have to establish the importance of families. Not necessarily from a biblical perspective, but don't get me wrong, it's very important from a biblical perspective, which we'll look at just now. But if you really look at society and the way society works, every society is really only as strong as the families in it.
Yeah.
Because if you look at individuals, right, every individual really has some sort of family, whether it's just the people you live with or the people you live around. And really the community is made up of smaller communities, which can be defined as families. And so however strong those families are, that's how strong the society is really going to be. And if you don't believe me, I mean, look at, you have examples sitting right in front of you, right? The society that you live in probably isn't very strong. And if you look at the families in your society, they're probably not very strong either.
Lots of broken families out there.
Yeah, for sure. And really broken families bring broken society because every individual needs that support and that closeness with a group of people. And so I think we all can admit that families are important. Maybe we don't want to admit that our specific family is important because that might mean that we have some work to do. But really at its core, the family makes up the society. And if your families are weak in a society, your society is weak in all seriousness. And so we have to learn how to make our families stronger, what we can do to make our families stronger, what we need to do as individuals. I know this podcast is more geared towards young people. I think from my perspective and from my experience as a young person, it's easy to sit back as the young people in a family and be like, oh, well, that's not my job.
Right.
That's not my mess to clean up because I'm the kid. Like, right. I don't have to do any part in this. But the truth of the matter is we can't sit and complain about how bad our families are if we're not willing to put any work into to make them better ourselves. And it doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what status you are in the family. There's things that you can always do to strengthen your family and to show God's love in your family. And God calls us to do that. And I think that Satan totally understands way more than we do how important the family is, because if you really look and think about your experiences with family, Satan really likes to attack the family. He likes to split people up because a house divided is a house defeated, right? And when we get put in isolation, when we think that no one loves us, when we think that our family sucks and that we don't have any support, that's where Satan wants us, because that's where we're most vulnerable. And so the question is, how are we supposed to treat our families? And it's so easy for us as humans to fall into resentment and bitterness towards our family members. And I think a lot of that is because, well, we live with those people all the time. And so it's hard to step back and look at the bigger picture and be like, okay, what am I doing that may be contributing to the bitterness that's going around? Or what can I do better? It's hard to do that because you're so in the picture. You're so in your family all the time. And it's hard to just step back and look at that like that. But God really calls us to love our family members with a special kind of love. And Paul kind of touches on this in Ephesians 6. He says, from verse 1, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment, with a promise, so that it may be well with you and that you may live long on the earth. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord." So you have this clear picture of how the family is supposed to be a unit. Fathers aren't supposed to provoke their children to anger. Children are supposed to honor their father and mother. Families should be a unit and love one another. There's a love there that we need to have. But how do we do that when families are so tough, right? Your family members are still people, and people are hard, and family is just hard to love. So how do we do that when it's so hard to do that? I'll leave you to answer that question. I got the easy stuff.
Oh my
Melissa,
goodness.
take it away.
Oh my. Yeah, I think it's proper for us to realize that some people who are listening to the podcast today who have family issues, who have relational issues with their family, with a mother or their father, estranged relationships within family, with family members, might be listening today and being like, well, I might go ahead and try to love this person, but what if I get repaid with bitterness or with anger, or what if they don't respect or are ungrateful for my efforts that I make towards them? And very well that is the case in sometimes when you love someone or when you show someone kindness, that doesn't always mean that you receive that back. But I think that's also where we need to realize that ultimately we are not in control of other people's responses. We're not in control of other people's reactions towards us, but we are in control of our actions and our emotions and our responses. I think that's where the fact that we are Christians, or the fact that we strive to live as Christ, comes in, because in our own, I think we're all kind of entitled when it comes to situations like that. Like, why should I even dare to or try to treat someone with kindness and love when they give me just the opposite of that? I think we're naturally just inclined to be that way. We love the people that love us, we're kind to the people that are kind to us. And it's, which makes it so surprising when the Bible talks about loving our enemies or loving the people who are hard to love, because that's really where the love of Christ is most resembled, is when we love our family members despite what they give back to us. Because the thing is, you may not feel like loving them, but at the end of the day, you can't command an emotion, but you can command an action. And so when you decide to love, when you decide to forgive, when you decide to be gracious towards them when you don't feel like they deserve it, I believe that that's really where God can start to work in our hearts to begin to feel that way.
For sure.
Because when we wait for a feeling, it might never come, it may never arrive.
Yeah, I think we often fall into this lie that we use an excuse that's like, oh, well, I don't feel like loving them, and so if I try to act with love, it's being dishonest,
right?
And I don't want to be dishonest, and so we make that excuse of like, oh, well, I don't want to lie because I don't feel like loving this person. But the truth is, I mean, if we all sat around and did whatever we felt like, nothing would get done.
Oh yeah,
right? We can't follow our emotions. We can't live a life like that. And really, I think if we're honest with ourselves, we can say that emotions often follow actions. And so really the first step to, if you truly want to feel like you love your family, you have to act like it first.
That's good.
And the first step to begin to love again is to act with love again. And so and we're not talking about like you don't have to start on a huge scale. It's just like small things, just showing grace and showing kindness where you may have made comments otherwise or been mean otherwise because it made you feel good or what have you. Just don't repay bitterness or anger with the same. Because the exact time that you do that, the exact time that you pay it back with anger or bitterness or whatever, Satan has his thumb right on top of you. And he's like, yes. Please do that. And like Melissa was saying, it's easy to love the people who love you. I mean, one of my favorite passages in the Gospels, because Jesus drops some savage truth bombs in the Gospels. And he says at one point, I don't remember the context of it, but he's like, you guys think you're good because you love the people who love you. And he's like, everybody does that. That's the easiest thing in the world. It's easy to love the people who love you. But then he says, but I say to you, love those who hate you and love your enemies, right? That's not so easy. But yet that's what we're called to do. And it's just part of the Christian way of the calling to lay down your life and deny yourself. And it all starts with just acting out of the way that you want to act. Because again, if we acted purely out of our feelings all the time, we wouldn't do anything. We'd all probably be in jail.
Oh yeah.
if we were honest with ourselves. And it's not an easy process. By no means are we saying that it's easy to act contrary to your emotions. But Christianity isn't easy. We all know that. And it's what God calls us to do. And God never calls us to do things that he's not willing to give us the power to do. People who are in, we've gotten a lot of questions about this, people who live in families who are unbelievers. Advice for you guys, first of all, I heard our youth pastor told us this once. Do not expect people who are not believers to act like believers. I think we as Christians have an expectation of everyone to act the way that we are supposed to act, and so we hold them to the same standard. If they're not believers, they don't have the Holy Spirit, and they are not held to the same standard that you are held to. And so don't expect anything in return. It's going to be harder for you if you're in an unbelieving family. I'm telling you up front, it's going to be harder for you. But, and this is going to sound like a burden, but it's really a privilege. Remember that you may very well be the only chance that your family has at seeing Jesus.
Yeah.
The only representation on a weekly basis that your family has to see Jesus may be you. And so think about that, and think about how you are showing Christ to your family members. If you want them to be saved, then give them a reason to be like, oh, why is my kid acting like this? Why are they being so good? Why are they giving me this grace? People notice that. What people shrug off and don't notice is when you repay evil for evil. That's normal to them. That's normal to people.
They expect that.
They expect that, yeah. But if someone is angry with you and you repay it with kindness,
you're like,
suddenly it's like, what? Who the heck is this person? And that's one of the best ways, even if you're not in an unbelieving family, for Christians in general, that's one of the best ways we can share our testimony and get into that conversation about faith, is because people come up to you and they're like, I noticed that you responded to this with this. Like, why'd you do that? I would never do that. And that's a perfect opportunity for you to share your faith.
Yeah.
And so people in unbelieving families, man, you have it tough. We are in no way disregarding the fact that you have it harder than most people. But it's a privilege for you to show Christ to your family every single day.
Yeah.
And to pray for them, and to allow God to work through you in their lives to call them to himself. And also on the other side of that, for broken families, people who don't even speak to their families anymore, who have huge issues with them, reconciliation is really the key to that. And some of us, the worst hurt that we have in our lives, the biggest baggage that we're carrying is from our families, and that hurts. But like it says in Ephesians 4, which I'm there right now, it says, do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do not give the devil an opportunity. And I think that speaks a lot to our, not just relationships with families, but grudges we have in general, is when we let the sun go down on our anger, so to speak. And when we let it sit in our hearts and fester, it just creates this bitterness and this resentment inside of us. And it's a perfect opportunity for Satan. Like it says, don't give the devil an opportunity. It's an opportunity for the devil to get in there and be like, oh, he did this to you. When you want to go show love to that person, they're like, oh, but he did this to you. She did this to you. She said this about you. Like all those things. And we have to not give the devil that opportunity. And so if you have relationships with family members that you haven't talked to in a long time, that are still grudges that you hold, you need to take care of that, because that doesn't only affect your relationship with that person, that affects your relationship with God. God doesn't want us to hold grudges, and it can affect our relationship with him. And it's just sin and stuff that we keep, and we hold on to it, and God just wants us to let it go.
Yeah, but we also want you to, we want to recognize that with broken families, especially estranged families, maybe your parents got divorced, or, you got really hurt by someone who you felt like was supposed to be there for you, that's not something that you just get over, obviously. but that might also be something that you felt like you could never forgive someone
Mm-hmm.
about, or that you could never get over. And the cool thing with Christianity, so much more different than any other religion or even our own abilities or strengths, is that it gives us the opportunity to show grace and love
Mm-hmm.
and mercy, because that's what we have received. We've
Mm-hmm.
received it in full measure through Jesus Christ. We've received that. And so I think one way that you can look at your relationships with, whether it's a father, a mother, or a sibling, or an uncle and aunt, or whatever has happened to you, whatever bitterness or hurt you have towards a family member, when you look to Christ and you realize that our purpose is to look more like him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he is the epitome, that thing. He is the epitome of love and grace and forgiveness and kindness. That if I'm supposed to look like Jesus, this is actually a good opportunity for me to take those things that he gives to me, the things that he represents, and practice that in those relationships. And that might not be an easy thing, or even something that we feel ready or willing to do because of scars and because of wounds. But I think that's also where coming to Jesus in prayer and saying, Lord, I know that I've had this grudge against this person for so long, and I don't want to forgive them. It's okay to acknowledge that, but I think where the turning point starts in our own hearts is when we say, but Lord, help me to do that. Give me an opportunity. I'm going to see this person tomorrow. How can I show Jesus? What can I do different than what I used to do in the past? And I think you will not only see change, hopefully, God willingly, in those relationships, but I think you'll mostly see the change in your own heart towards that person.
Yeah. I just want to dispel a lie I think we've been fed. For some of you who are sitting out there and thinking of different family members that you have issues with or what have you, and you're thinking, oh, well, time will heal.
Ooh.
Time will heal my relationship because eventually it just won't hurt anymore. Eventually I'll let go of that. Listen, time does not heal. Time and intentionality heals.
That's good.
You can't just let it sit for long, long periods of time, like years. You have to be intentional about what you're doing with your time and how you're going to go about healing that wound. And so please do not let it sit. We're not saying that someone does something horrible to you and the next day you need to go out and be like, I forgive you, everything's fine. Like, we understand that that's not how that works. But if you let it sit for long periods of time, it only gets worse. It just comes back up again later. It doesn't heal. It's just a Band-Aid. And one day that Band-Aid's going to get ripped off by something someone says or another thing that person does to you. And suddenly you have 5 wounds and you didn't even realize you had the first 2. So please, guys, we totally recognize that family relationships are hard. People are hard in general. But they're some of the most important relationships you have, and God has called you to a specific way of living towards your family. And so please take what we've said today just into account. Think about it. Think about what you need to do. Maybe it's reach out to a family member or just say, I'm sorry for something or what have you. God will speak to you through that, through prayer and through his word. And so, we love you guys. We're praying for you guys. Again, as always, ask any questions that you want via our personal pages or the Unashamed Ministry pages, and we'd be happy to answer. If you haven't heard already, which you should have heard because we've said it every single episode, we have a WhatsApp study group on relationships, which has been awesome. It seems like it's getting better and better as we go along. If you want to get on that and you're not on that, contact somebody, one of us or the Unashamed page, and we will get you on that.
It's not too late.
Yeah, it's not too late. It's never too late. We're on day 11 today, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a 40-day thing, so it's not too late. We're not even halfway. Get in there, get on it, and with that, we will see you in the next episode. See ya.